So I remember at Jubilee one time, I was playing Tommy on the front table, and it was a weekend night, so the place was pretty busy, a lot of people around. And the front two tables that were side by side, second table over, would have been about here or so. And so both players were actually playing the ball into the side pockets. One would have to wait for the other. And I remember Tommy was on a perfect game in blues.
In blues?
Yeah. I think what happened was is at one point the black got tied up here and the pink was tied up. And they just seemed to be making red and blue and red and blue. But anyway, the fellows that were playing on the table next to us were not necessarily the most gracious as far as getting out of the way. So a couple of times Tommy had been in a position of having his cue ball here for the blue and having to step back and wait, Well, at the time I was watching, at that time, Tommy had 11 blues, and or 10 blues, and one was on his 11th, and obviously going to play position on the following red. And there was somebody that was playing in the side pocket on this side here, and Tommy was waiting for him and standing at the side of the table, and that person happened to be in a little indecision. I was sitting across the table looking at Tommy, and this fella had moved, and now he's across at the other side of the table, but Tommy hadn't moved, and he continued to stand still. Finally, I got up off my chair, came around the other side of the table. Tommy was sleeping, which wasn't a completely uncommon thing for Tommy to do. He quite often would fall asleep during a game of follow or whatever, sitting on a chair or whatever it happened to be. The only problem was most of the time when he woke up Tommy, he would have to ask what ball he was on, and then he'd continue finishing the table. In this particular instance, he didn't actually finish out on a perfect game of blues. But that was what he was intended for, simply because of the fact that he had already had 10 of them, so that's the way he wanted to complete it. So,
amazing.
Yeah, that was pretty neat.
You talked about a safety game. There was a particular time you saw Tommy knocking in the colors.
Well, what happened was is that we had a Western Canadians that were being held at Seymour Billiards in Vancouver, and we were working together, and one of the players that he was going to be matched up against at some point, he felt, and the way the board was going to work out, was Jimmy White. And even if, you know, he didn't match up with Jim at that time, he knew the strength down there that he wanted his safety game to be in form. So we practiced together for a week or two before the tournament, and I remember where he spent one afternoon where he was not allowed to make more than 2 colors. And that's how the game went. Then he would play safe, and I would try to win with him, only making 2 colors at a time. And then during this practice session in an afternoon, he at one time had all 3 balls in this position here. And the one thing that I found absolutely amazing about this was the reason that they were still in line is because in his safety play, 2, 3 rails, whatever it happened to be, he was constantly rolling up the ball flush, and flush, and flush, with all of the 3 ball colors. So to do that, obviously, he wasn't knocking them in each different direction. He was coming off extremely accurate in this. So it was kind of a memorable thing. I mean, not that anybody would have ever really seen it or it would have ever happened in a game, but for him to actually do this really showed just how much of a tactician he was and how the safety game was just immaculate at that particular time.
That's incredible.
Yeah.